What's the first thing you do when you get home from the grocery store or the farmer's market? If the answer is dump all your new produce into the sink to be washed, there's a good chance you're doing it wrong, depending on what kind of produce you're about to wash. While it may seem somewhat intuitive to wash all your foods before eating them, not all ingredients require that type of care. Sure, washing produce is acceptable to everyone and a given for most, but what about everything else? There are actually some foods that should never, ever be washed, for one reason or another. As you navigate the landscape of grocery shopping, you may not know exactly what the foods have come into contact with, which can be worrisome for a consumer. It's hard to remember a time when Marvel wasn't a household name. Sure, the company got its start peddling superhero comics in the late 30s, way back when it was known by the considerably less gripping, timely publications. But one could argue that it wasn't until iconic superheroes like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man leapt onto the silver screen that Marvel Comics' pantheon of do-gooders gained mainstream appeal. Jump to 2020, and the now Disney-owned Marvel Entertainment is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that's spawned dozens of films, countless TV shows, myriad merchandise, and quite a few well-received video games. To help you figure out what you need to wash and what you don't, here's a brief guide that lets you in on the rationale behind both mindsets. Aren't you going to wash that first? Some foods require washing because they contain impurities that can be cleaned off using water without running the risk of spreading bacteria to other parts of your kitchen. As such, those ingredients or containers should be cleaned. The latest in the brand's string of super-powered success stories. Marvel's Avengers, a brawler looter handled by Square Enix's Crystal Dynamics. Gamers and superhero fans who just can't wait to sink their teeth into Marvel's Avengers are in luck. In these cases, there are distinct health benefits that outweigh the risks. Read on to learn what you ought to wash before consuming. Canned beans. If you're anything like us, you've stocked your pantry with at least a dozen cans of legumes, just in case. The extenuating circumstances could, of course, range from something as mild as forgetting to soak the dried beans the night before, to an end-of-world apocalypse scenario. From the baddies your heroes will be squaring off against to the familiar voices behind the Avengers themselves, there's plenty to learn about this new adventure. Always good to be prepared, right? From cannellini and black beans to chickpeas and black-eyed peas, we like to have them all as options. While these already cooked bean varieties are great for time-saving convenience, the liquid they're preserved in can be loaded with sodium. As such, the canned contents ought to be completely drained, then thoroughly rinsed with cold water to remove the salty residue. If you plan to sauté or roast, you'll also want to take the extra step of patting dry with a paper towel so they don't steam. Fruits and vegetables. You probably already know you should wash all fruits and vegetables before using them in your great culinary projects or before eating. Wash them well under cold water in order to remove any bacteria and impurities. However, since fruit and veggie peels may be porous, avoid using soap to wash as the cleaning agent could be absorbed into the produce. For good measure, be sure to pat the washed fruits and vegetables dry with paper towel. What about fruits with inedible skins? Wash them, too. While it may seem silly at first to wash melons, avocado, and citrus fruits since you're not planning to eat the skin, they actually do require washing as well. Here is everything you need to know about Marvel's Avengers. What is the release date for Marvel's Avengers? As with most modern AAA titles, Marvel's Avengers has had a long and complex development cycle, and its release window has undoubtedly felt the effects of it. When you pierce the skin of a fruit, no matter how thick, with a knife, you run the risk of any bacteria from the peel contaminating the fleshy edible interior. While originally slated for a May 15, 2020 release, Crystal Dynamics took to its website in January 2020 to provide an update that surely took fans by surprise. Take the extra step to wash these unlikely fruits so you can feel 100% secure about what you're eating. Rice. While we accept that there are folks who grew up in households where rice doesn't get washed before cooking, we cannot condone that kind of neglect in good conscience. The Post, which described the development team's desire to deliver an original story-driven campaign, engaging co-op, and compelling content for years to come, also announced that the title would instead be released on September 4, 2020. Though a number of video games, television shows, and movies were delayed in early 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Black Widow film, it seems as though this was not the case for Crystal Dynamics' new game. Instead, in its update, Crystal Dynamics wrote that the delay was required in order to focus on fine-tuning and polishing the game to the high standards our fans expect and deserve. Are there trailers for Marvel's Avengers? Crystal Dynamics hasn't been shy about showing off Marvel's Avengers ever since the first Avengers Project announcement trailer, dropped way back in 2017. We've tasted clumpy unwashed rice and we've enjoyed light, clean, washed rice. In the teaseriest of teasers, the trailer gave viewers their first look at, well, as such, we can say without a doubt that rice should be rinsed in cold water and drained at least 2 to 3 times prior to any type of cooking preparation. Washing rice removes surface starches from the grains, any bacteria present, and results in fluffy rice that boasts pure flavor. Canned drinks. If you've ever spent any time in the back room of a grocery store, or really in any warehouse setting at all, then you know just how filthy shipments of canned beverages might be when they arrive at stores. Not all that much, save for a few shots suggestive of everybody's favorite superheroes, including images like Bruce Banner's broken glasses in front of a Hulk-smashed door and Iron Man's flickering palm repulsor. The genuine article, which finally showed off the Avengers, didn't crop up until E3 2019. Whether you're getting ready to gulp a can of soda or drink an energy-giving beverage, you owe it to yourself and your general health to wash the can before partaking. Blending a little bit of the game's story with a dash of gameplay, some ominous foreshadowing, and a hefty helping of patented Banner Stark bickering, the first full-length trailer held fans over until the next big reveal. October 2019 saw a new trailer featuring none other than Kamala Khan, aka Ms. The tops of canned beverages are often covered in dust, bacteria, and who knows what else. If you are unable to wash the can, at least wipe down the lid thoroughly using a wet paper towel and pour the contents into a glass. Canned and jarred foods. Like canned drinks, canned and jarred foods can get pretty gross from the time they are manufactured to the time they reach you, the consumer. Jams, beans, tomato sauce. These cans should be washed thoroughly and dried before using to prevent the dirty particles from the lids from contaminating the contents. Marvel. If the cans are not equipped with pull-off tabs, you should be sure to wash your trusty can opener in between uses as well. It also introduced Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM, a villainous, anti-Avengers organization, that would get its very own trailer come August 2020. Better safe than sorry. Shellfish. While you don't need to wash raw fish before cooking, you do need to rinse shellfish, clams, and mussels. Since they can be filled with sand and grit, you'll need to rinse that out completely, otherwise, you'll be eating it. Real Simple has some super easy guidelines on how to make sure you're not getting any sand or silt with your mussels. Before throwing them in the pot, rinse them thoroughly under running water, and that will get rid of a lot of the sediment. Then, put them in a pot of cold water, add a bit of salt, and put them in the fridge for at least half an hour. Stir a few times while you wait, and after you take them out of the fridge, don't dump the pot. Scoop the shellfish out with your hands, and check the bottom of the pot. It'll probably be coated with sand that's settled out, and you'll be glad you took the time to wash them. Food 52 says this is the time to give the outside of the shells another wash, and scrub them under running water. This is when you get rid of any beards that are peeking through the shells. Don't pull toward the opening of the shell, or you could kill the creature inside, and you'll have perfectly prepped, and clean, shellfish. Fresh herbs. Whether you pick up a few bunches of fresh herbs at the grocery store, at the farmer's market, or out of your garden, it's important that you give them a good, but careful, wash, not just before you use them, but before you put them in the refrigerator. By far, the most interesting trailer dropped in June 2020. In it, viewers were treated to a deeper look at Ms. Marvel's storyline and how it intersects with one of the game's big bads, MODOK, mental organism designed only for killing. What platforms will Marvel's Avengers be available on? Thankfully for gamers who have yet to pick a side in the console war, Marvel's Avengers won't force you to choose between Microsoft's Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. Herbs can contain dirt and other kinds of grit that you don't want in your fridge, and you definitely don't want in your food.
Small bundles can be washed by rinsing them under cool, running water. And, sure, while the game will be available on the PS4 and Xbox One, gamers who go next-gen will be able to upgrade their games for free. What exactly does that mean? Well, according to Crystal Dynamics Chief Technology Officer Gary Snethen, the PS5's GPU will allow for a slew of graphical and gameplay improvements, including increased texture resolution, enhanced ambient occlusion, and improved frame rate, specifically 60 FPS with dynamic 4K resolution. Worried about starting on your Xbox One, upgrading to the Series 10, and losing all of that vital progress? Don't be. Shake them, pat them dry with a paper towel, or use a salad spinner to get rid of the excess water. For larger bundles, fill the sink with cold water, put your herbs in, and carefully swirl your hands through to loosen any dirt that's hidden in the leaves. If there's a lot of dirt, you might have to repeat the process with some clean water before drying them in the same way. Skip the wash. Unlike produce or gross skin surfaces, some foods do not require washing before they're eaten or cooked. In fact, doing so may be more risky with some things. Crystal Dynamics has confirmed that the game will allow you to transfer saves across console generations. The following list will help you determine which foods can skip the wash and why. Raw poultry and meat. While you might think washing raw chicken, other types of poultry, and meat prior to cooking helps to clean off bacteria and stave off foodborne illnesses, the opposite is true. With poultry, the water you would use to rinse it isn't scalding hot enough to actually kill off bacteria. Doing so only redistributes any harmful bacteria onto your kitchen surfaces and possibly your body. When you then prepare other foods on those same surfaces, cross-contamination may cause illness. Similar to the rationale for not washing raw poultry, the USDA advises against washing raw meat such as beef, lamb, and pork. In a Square Enix press release, Crystal Dynamics explained, those moving their saves to next gen will transfer their player profiles and progression so they can pick up right where they left off. Marvel's Avengers will also be available on PC and Google Stadia. Who is part of the main cast of Marvel's Avengers? Crystal Dynamics tapped some of the biggest talent in the video game industry to step into your favorite heroes' supersuits in Marvel's Avengers. Playing genius billionaire playboy philanthropist Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is Nolan North, a longtime voice actor who boasts hundreds of television and video game credits ranging from Saints Row 4 to the Uncharted series. Fellow Uncharted actor Troy Baker, another super-famous video game veteran, metaphorically dons the green guy's tattered shorts as Bruce Banner, the Hulk. You're better off skipping the meat wash and instead, thoroughly wash and clean your kitchen surfaces in between cooking sessions. Bagged salads. According to the FDA, many bagged salads, as well as pre-cut and packaged produce like carrots or celery, have been pre-washed, so you do not need to wash them after buying. Like North, Baker's voice has graced countless titles including The Last of Us, in which he portrayed Joel, and Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding. Gears of War Faw's Laura Bailey, yet another video game voice acting superstar, plays super spy turned Avenger Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow. These products will be labeled as ready to eat if they have indeed been pre-washed. In fact, washing them once you get home can actually increase the chances of contaminating them with bacteria that may already be on your kitchen surfaces. Since commercially packaged produce has often been triple washed, they are perfect to eat as is. Steve Rogers, Captain America, is played by Resident Evil 3 actor Jeff Shine, while Thor's IRL counterpart is none other than Laura Bailey's hubby and talent behind Marvel's Spider-Man villain Kingpin, Travis Willingham. Rounding out the main cast is Sandra Saad, a newcomer to video game voice acting, who takes on the role of Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. What is the gameplay like in Marvel's Avengers? The very first legitimate trailer for Marvel's Avengers offered gamers a glimpse at the fast-paced, hero-based combat that would make up the majority of the title's gameplay. Each Avenger boasted their own set of killer moves, action was fast, fluid, and frenetic, and flying around while blasting bad guys as Iron Man looked particularly hype as heck. You chose them for the convenience, right? Raw fish. As with raw poultry and meat, avoid washing raw fish in order to reduce the risk of spreading bacteria all around your kitchen. Then came June 2020's War Table extended gameplay reveal, and everything changed. In the nearly 26-minute video, the folks at Crystal Dynamics showcased the broad range of attack styles, which include melee, ranged, aerial, and ground-based combat skills. Instead, buy fish that's been gutted and scaled from a reputable fishmonger. Players can also upgrade skill trees using skill points gained through experience, which allow players to mix and match advanced moves and unique combat styles for each Avenger. Wash your hands well and clean surfaces in your kitchen work areas as thoroughly as possible. These simple precautions are your best bets for preventing foodborne illnesses. Eggs. The USDA does not recommend washing eggs you purchase from the store. To top it all off, there's also gear and perks which both affect your team's stats. As a special technique of washing eggs is required as part of the commercialization process, doing so once your eggs are home can increase the risk of cross-contamination. Eggs are washed and cleaned once they've been laid in order to remove any bacteria. Some even boast nifty status effects, like shrink, which literally transforms enemies into diminutive versions of themselves. Considering that Marvel's Avengers is a live service game, meaning it'll be constantly updated, the devs at Crystal Dynamics will surely add new gameplay elements to keep players invested in its gameplay loop as time goes on. What is the story of Marvel's Avengers? Marvel's Avengers doesn't adapt any particular story from the MCU films or its comic book counterpart. They are then coated with mineral oil to give the shells a layer of protection. Instead, it tells a brand new story centering around a disastrous event dubbed A Day, along with the dissolution of the Avengers team and its reassembly. A Day was meant to be a celebration of the Avengers as they unveiled their new San Francisco headquarters, but things take a turn for the deadly when Taskmaster and his goons attack. As such, there's no need for you to re-wash them. Pasta. Please don't wash pasta before cooking. The natural starches in all varieties of pasta are exactly what you want to keep. It turns out that this assault was a distraction meant to allow the bad guys to rig the Avengers helicarrier to explode by overloading its experimental Terrigen reactor. Not only does the ensuing explosion seemingly kill Captain America, but it also releases a Terrigen mist that transforms regular citizens of San Fran into Inhumans with special abilities. Following the devastation of A Day and the appearance of AIM, an organization that believes science is responsible for maintaining order, not superheroes, the Avengers go their separate ways. It's up to Kamala Khan, whose ability to embiggen resulted from her exposure to the Terrigen mist, to reunite the superhero team and take the fight back to AIM, MODOK, and all the rest of the big bads. How do you customize your heroes in Marvel's Avengers? Kicking bad guy booty is fun, but kicking bad guy booty in style is even better, which is why the cosmetic customization options in Marvel's Avengers are so nifty. Feel like letting Thor dress down for the day? No problem. Stick him in his Donald Blake outfit. Often, you'll want to reserve some of the cooking water because that starchy content is invaluable when it comes to helping you create the silkiest sauce possible. Is Hulk in the mood for a little morally ambiguous Vegas pizzazz? Throw his Joe Fixit skin on and get to smashin'. The starch from that water helps the sauce cling to the noodles, resulting in a thick, tasty sauce that coats the pasta perfectly. Just like in many other modern video games, these skins are unlocked both through mission chains and the game's online marketplace. While each hero has their own sort of battle pass in the form of hero challenge cards, 40-tier reward trees that can unlock all sort of spiffy stuff by completing various challenges, players can also buy credits using real-world money. Why would you want to wash that away before the cooking's even underway? Hopefully, your cooking experiences will become all the more streamlined and way easier now that you know which foods need a wash and which ones don't. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for better or for worse, Marvel's Avengers will have microtransactions for skins, emotes, nameplates, and takedowns, which are basically flashy moves that show off your favorite Avenger style. Will Marvel's Avengers have free DLC? Marvel's Avengers will allow players to dish out real dough to score in-game skins, emotes, and the like. Enjoy your time in the kitchen and relish in your sacred mealtimes worry-free. Mushrooms. When it comes to mushrooms, you should definitely skip washing them. And while microtransactions have become pretty dang common, and stigmatized, in gaming, Crystal Dynamics is doing something a lot less common when it comes to DLC. There are even a couple of different reasons why. If you give your mushrooms a wash before you put them in your refrigerator, the inevitable dampness will speed up just how quickly your mushrooms start to turn bad, especially if you keep them in a sealed container.
Once you wash them, it's also going to be more difficult to get that crispy texture you're looking for when you sauté them, and we all know that texture can be just as important as flavor. Dry clean them using a pastry brush, or other similar brush, or just some paper towels, and you'll be all set to add them to your meal. According to the Mushroom Council, you can give them a quick rinse immediately before cooking them, but they also recommend never, ever soaking your mushrooms. They're giving it to players for free. You read that right. As the persistent world of Marvel's Avengers grows, the folks behind the scenes will be distributing free DLC characters, like the upcoming Hawkeye, along with free regions. The problem is in their super absorbent qualities, and if they spend too much time in the water, you'll ruin your meal. Turkey. A whole turkey can be one of the biggest challenges anyone can face in the kitchen, and that's quite literal. Trying to wrestle with a raw, 20-pound bird might be the hardest part of preparing your fancy meal, and that's just one more reason to skip washing your bird. In other words, co-op squadmates on a budget will never have to suffer from hero envy while they watch their BFFs bash skulls as their favorite paid DLC-only Avenger. That said, there is one caveat, and it's kind of a stinker, at least for Xbox and PC gamers. In early August 2020, Crystal Dynamics announced that Spider-Man would be joining Marvel's Avengers exclusively on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. The jury's still out on whether Xbox and PC players will get their own exclusive characters. What are war zones in Marvel's Avengers? One of Marvel's Avengers' first big selling points was its co-op gameplay, which would allow players to team up with 3 of their pals to pummel the living daylights out of Marvel's Most Wanted. Turkey can contain Salmonella and Campylobacter, and while washing it won't just fail to remove bacteria, it'll spread it around, just like with other poultry. There is a single exception, though, and according to the U.S. government's food safety blog, turkeys that have been brined need to be rinsed. Although the title's online multiplayer mechanics were mentioned in press releases and trailers, it wouldn't be until June 2020's War Table that prospective players would get a peek at Marvel's Avengers 4-player co-op mode. They have some recommendations on how to avoid contamination, and that involves first moving everything, including soap dispensers, sponges, and drying racks, away from your sink. Its name, War Zones. Existing outside of the single-player campaign, War Zones allow up to 4 players to select their favorite Avenger, customized gear and all, and team up to rain hell down on the AIM threat. Cover the surrounding counters with paper towels, and place the roasting pan next to your sink. Clean the sink completely with hot water, then fill it with a few inches of cold water. Run more cold water through the inside cavity of the turkey, make sure it's running out the opposite end, and transfer it to the pan. As described in the June War Table video, war zones range in both objective and size. You still shouldn't rinse or wash the outside of the bird, and be sure you clean the area completely with hot water and soap when you're done. While some take place in large environments, designed for exploration and team traversal, others take place in smaller, more cramped, and more chaotic, environments. As the War Table video points out, variety is the name of the game when it comes to war zones. Their objective-based challenges differ from mission to mission, and so do their rewards. What is the single-player campaign like in Marvel's Avengers? Marvel's Avengers has been marketed as a persistent 4-player co-op action game, but that's not to say it'll be lacking in the single-player department. On the contrary, its solo campaign will allow players to embody specific Avengers as they each tackle missions respective to their character. These solo experiences are called hero missions, and according to June's War Table, they give players the chance to dive deeper into each hero's story. Simultaneously, these missions showcase the game's diverse hero design, a fancy way of saying that each mission is tailored specifically to its respective hero's abilities. June's War Table shows off one of these experiences, using the Thor-focused hero mission, Once an Avenger, as an example. In the mission, Thor is tasked with eliminating the AIM robots that are attempting to burrow into the hull of the Chimera helicarrier. Action-packed, task-based, and story-driven, hero missions allow gamers new to the Avengers to learn about the heroes, and let longtime fans watch familiar stories unfold in new ways. Who are the villains in Marvel's Avengers? The bad guys are just as important as the good guys.
After all, what's the point of a superhero squad without villains to challenge them? It turns out that there will be plenty of those challenges in Marvel's Avengers, at least, if the game's roster of confirmed baddies has anything to say about it. Revealed in the aptly named MODOK threat trailer, the grotesque MODOK, also known as George Tarleton, appears to be pulling the strings behind AIM's anti-Inhuman propaganda. A founding member of the organization, Tarleton believes that he could improve the world through science. Unfortunately, he is transformed following the events of a day, after which he begins to push the agenda that superheroes are beyond the public's control. This allows him to turn the public, and AIM's technologies, against the Avengers. But MODOK isn't the only big bad butting heads with Earth's mightiest. A team led by Taskmaster, the photo-reflexic dude in the skull mask from the first trailer, is apparently responsible for blowing up the Avengers helicarrier on a day. And the big, green abomination, aka Emil Blonsky, will be throwing down with Hulk at a certain point in the game. What special editions will be available for Marvel's Avengers? Though Marvel's Avengers $59.99 standard and digital versions are complete packages in their own right, gamers willing to dish out big dough are in for equally big bonuses. At $79.99, the deluxe edition of Marvel's Avengers includes the base game plus a handful of cool goodies, namely, the exclusive Obsidian outfit pack so you can deck your Avengers out in sleek, sci-fi style. It also comes with a handful of Obsidian-themed nameplates along with 72-hour early access for players who pre-ordered this package. Deluxe is cool and all, but real fans may want to get a little more bang for their buck. The Earth's Mightiest edition of Marvel's Avengers boasts the beefy price tag of $199.99, and while that's no chump change, what you'll get for that price is a proverbial treasure trove of Avengers swag. As explained by its listing in the Square Enix store, it contains Marvel's Avengers, Deluxe Edition, exclusive steel book, Black Widow belt buckle, Iron Man's prototype armor blueprints, Mjolnir keychain, 6 Hulk bobblehead, honorary Avenger pin, and a 5x7 Avengers Day group photo.